Everyone, welcome back to It's Called Football as we get ready to bring you all the action about to take place over Matchday 14 in the Premier League this season. We don't have an early kickoff match this time on Saturday, but we do have an even split of our games, five of them on Saturday, the other five on Sunday, and we kick off with the current league leaders Arsenal taking on Wolves, who were quite harshly denied at the minimum a point last week when they played Fulham. It is going to be a tough match, and you could argue Arsenal and Wolves are two of the sides that have been most negatively impacted by suspect refereeing decisions. So it will be fun to see how the officials try to uh, put both teams at a disadvantage in this game. Um, I can't say I'm excited to see how they do it, but I'm kind of expecting it. We then see Brentford host Luton Town, which Brentford at home is always difficult, as Arsenal saw themselves last weekend. Luton Town will be thrilled because they've just come off the back of their first home win, and so they will be buzzing off that extra adrenaline rush. But obviously, you have to take extra care when you travel to Brentford. Burnley and Sheffield United go head to head in what could be a crucial match at the bottom end of the table, given that both of them are still languishing down there and need to find a way out, frankly. Luton have now distanced themselves a little bit from both of these teams, which is a surprise, really. I can't say honestly that I was thinking Luton Town would be the strongest of the three promoted sides. But at the moment, they've created a little bit of breathing space between themselves and these two that are going head to head. We then see Nottingham Forest host Everton and Newcastle hosting Manchester United, and arguably the pick of the bunch in Saturday's games. That is the late kickoff on Saturday afternoon if you're in North America, and late evening around 8 p.m. if you are in the UK. Matchday 14 then continues on Sunday with five more fixtures. No Friday or Monday fixtures this time on a Premier League matchday. And that's because there's a huge pileup of fixtures that always takes place in December. So they have to kind of manage the games to make sure teams have enough days of rest in between match days. But Sunday kicks off with Bournemouth hosting Aston Villa. Both these teams are in decent form. Bournemouth managed to pick up a win last weekend. Aston Villa are generally strong. They picked up a win against Tottenham last week as well. And they'll both be looking to continue their upward climb. Chelsea then hosts Brighton in a match that's steeped in recent rivalry. A lot of personnel from Brighton have gone to Chelsea in recent years, including one of their managers, Graham Potter, at one point. He had gone over to Chelsea, didn't really succeed there. But several players have also gone over from Brighton to Chelsea with varying degrees of success. And we'll talk a little bit more about that just a little later on. Liverpool then host Fulham. Liverpool, of course, at home are a terrifying side to face, but Fulham will be going into this one maybe quietly optimistic, given that they just came off a win after a long streak of winless results. So perhaps Fulham just have, a little bit of an outside hope that they might pick up a draw there. I don't think it's within Fulham's capabilities. All respect to them. I don't know if they quite have the players to be able to take a win at Liverpool. We then see a London derby on Sunday as West Ham and Crystal Palace go head to head. West Ham have managed to turn a defeat around into victory against Burnley last time out in the league, and Crystal Palace, unfortunately for them, continue a somewhat poor run of results. And then we see the pick of Sunday's matches as Manchester City welcome Tottenham Hotspur in what's probably the biggest match of the entire weekend right now, given the positions of the two teams in the table, what's at stake, and so on. Just a quick reminder and a look at how the Premier League table currently stands. Arsenal is leading by a point against Manchester City, who then in turn lead Liverpool by a point, who lead Aston Villa by a point, who lead Tottenham by a point. Very tight margins at the top of the table there. And Manchester United and Newcastle aren't far behind that either. Technically, fifth place is up for grabs at the moment if results go the right way for either side out of Newcastle and Manchester United. The winner of that game could leapfrog Spurs and uh, and take fifth place. Manchester United have the possibility of taking fourth place if they beat Newcastle by a huge margin and Aston Villa lose to Bournemouth by a huge margin because the goal difference has to swing in United's favor as well. Unlikely, but weird things happen in football. Brighton aren't too far behind fifth or sixth and seventh right now, and West Ham are kind of a little bit further away. And then there's a bit of a gap to 10th place Chelsea at the moment, who they're not going to find it easy against Brighton, and Brighton will be motivated to try and maintain or increase that distance they have on Chelsea right now. The bottom half of the league table sees Brentford tied with Chelsea on points, who are in 10th but behind on goal difference. And then we see Wolves, Crystal Palace, and Fulham all level on points, just goal difference separating them. And for Wolves and Palace, it's just the fact that Wolves have scored more goals that's put them above Palace at the moment because their goal difference is identical. Uh, Nottingham Forest then lag a little bit behind them, followed by Bournemouth, and then Luton, although they're a few points behind Bournemouth, they are also a few points ahead of Sheffield United in that bottom three places. Like I said, Burnley and Sheffield United is a big game for both because it gives them at least an opportunity to try and get closer to leaving those bottom three places. Everton, of course, facing Nottingham Forest this weekend after their defeat at the hands of Manchester United last weekend. Everton will be looking to try and claw back some of these points that they lost in that deduction that they were given of 10 points. So we have three featured matches. In truth, we could probably have had five or six this weekend that would be worth watching. But the three that maybe have the biggest impact start on Saturday with Burnley and Sheffield United. Now, it's not two big star names in terms of clubs, but with a lot riding already on the line for both of them, it could be one that we see a lot of action and a little bit of ferocity in the battle because when teams are in those bottom three places, the hardest games and the ones that you most want to win are when you're facing teams that are around you because it gives you an opportunity to try and create some distance between yourself and them, and it's in your control. And so both teams will be, eager to get a win in this game, especially Burnley, who are continuously in that poor run at home. They've lost 7 out of 7 at home so far this season in the Premier League, and they will want to change that as soon as they can. The second match, perhaps unsurprisingly, is the first of our two Titan clashes this weekend when Newcastle welcome Manchester United. Last season, this fixture ended 2-0 to Newcastle. And Manchester United, of course, have still been up and down in terms of their form. Their league form actually has been very good, but Manchester United didn't have a very good result midweek in the Champions League in their European match where they were 3-1 up and somehow lost their lead to finish the game level at 3-3. Their goalkeeper was at fault, unfortunately, for at least two of the goals, I would say, if not all three. And hopefully it doesn't impact confidence hugely, but these kinds of things do affect a team's comfort level when you're coming up against a tough opponent. Newcastle, on the other hand, did themselves some credit facing French giants PSG in their European match in midweek, and Newcastle arguably should have won, but finished the game level as well due to a rather suspect penalty given to PSG. So both teams will have a little bit of fire in their belly and they'll want to prove things, although I would argue it's probably Newcastle that have that feeling a little bit more. Manchester United are probably a little bit deflated. And the final featured match that we've thought of that we would suggest is the last match of the weekend on Sunday, Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. This game is always entertaining. These two teams have met each other with varying degrees of stakes on the line in Europe, in domestic competitions in England. It doesn't really matter. They always serve up good matches and exciting battles. Tottenham is probably in worse form and at a disadvantage going into this game, and we'll talk a little more about that very shortly. So the big stories. Although we talked about Arsenal and Wolves, both teams have suffered kind of from poor refereeing decisions. Arsenal have recently climbed to the summit in the Premier League, and in midweek in their European match, for the first time this season, they were able to have their first choice five attacking players starting the game at the same time in Kai Havertz, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, and Gabriel Jesus. And those five players each scored for them in their European match. In the first half alone, the Gunners won 6-0 in their European match, so they will be going into this game full of confidence, given that they played their match at home and are at home again against Wolves. So they should be going into this game confident that their quality can see them over the line, and hopefully we don't see officiating decisions play a major role yet again in the Premier League. The other big story, obviously, Newcastle and Manchester United fought against each other between third and fourth place for the Premier League last season for a decent chunk of the last campaign. And at the end of it, Manchester United did finish third place, but Newcastle arguably have a stronger, more settled side with a clear identity and a style of play. Add to that that at home, Newcastle are worryingly good, shall we say, in terms of opposition concerns because Newcastle have beaten Arsenal there, they've beaten Chelsea, they thrashed Chelsea there last weekend. They've claimed the scalps of so many big sides, including Manchester United in recent months and seasons, and they will be looking to get another win for sure in Newcastle. Manchester United are going to have to be at their best if they want to get anything from this game. Brighton have had a lot of people go to Chelsea in recent seasons. Left back Mark Cucurella went to Chelsea. Uh, Goalkeeper Robert Sanchez is one of the recent players that's gone there, but probably the highest profile one recently is Moises Caicedo, pictured here, bottom right for you. A defensive midfielder who is the current record signing for an English club. 115 million pounds is what Chelsea reportedly paid for him, and he's been solid in their side, but because Chelsea themselves don't have a settled team yet, Caicedo hasn't quite flourished to the same extent that he did in the Brighton team. That being said, obviously there is some animosity between these two sides because of all the players and even coaches that Chelsea has poached from Brighton. Chelsea being at home, they have gotten decent results off a few sides. They've managed to draw with Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City at home. But of course, last week they were demolished and taken apart by Newcastle, so they will be stinging from that and trying to get this back on track. It will be interesting to see whether the the history between Chelsea and Brighton in terms of their transfers plays any sort of role in the emotion of this game. And like we said, Manchester City and Tottenham always serve up entertaining matches with quite a lot of fire. In recent seasons, it's kind of tended to be that Tottenham win when they host the game, and Manchester City almost destroy Tottenham when City host. Uh, Given that Tottenham are currently going into this game off the back of three consecutive Premier League defeats and still a couple of injuries and suspensions to be dealing with, there's less than ideal levels of optimism, I'm sure, in the Tottenham camp. Manchester City are only in second place by a point, and should Arsenal slip up against Wolves, City will be looking to pounce and get that top spot back. Uh, it'll be fun either way to see, but Tottenham weirdly seems to up their game and get results against Manchester City. So we'll see what happens. So, what are our predictions for this weekend's set of games? Well, like we said, Arsenal and Wolves, both teams have been on the wrong end of refereeing decisions quite a bit this season and even last season to an extent. But Arsenal should, in theory, have the quality right now. Wolves have some players that are suspended for this fixture due to collecting too many yellow cards out of the game so far in the league. Wolves are actually missing their first choice midfield, both midfielders for this game, which is not ideal for them. They also have a couple of other players out with injury already. And I'm going to go that it's still going to be a close match. It's still going to be a narrow margin of victory, but I am going to say Arsenal to win 2-1. Brentford at home are so well drilled in a defensive sense when a big side with high quality attacking players comes to visit, as we saw. If any of you watched Brentford versus Arsenal last week, you would have seen just how good Brentford are defensively against sides with top quality attackers. With all respect to Luton, I'm not sure they're classed in that same category. And I think Brentford will go for the attack a little bit more in this game, and I expect Brentford to win it comfortably 3-0. Burnley and Sheffield United are both looking for results. Sheffield United arguably will want to win, but they also don't need to push as hard for a win because they are a point ahead of Burnley at the moment. Uh, that being said, I think Burnley will want to get rid of this poor run of results at home, and ultimately, I think they might just do it this time. And I'm going to try and put some faith into Burnley here and say 2-1. Nottingham Forest and Everton is difficult. Both teams lost last weekend. Forest were at home last weekend and lost to Brighton. Everton were at home and got destroyed by Manchester United. I think this time Everton will still be stinging a little bit from that whole points deduction situation going on. And weirdly, I'm going to say that I think Everton are somehow going to get a win from this game. It will not be easy. Forest are very difficult to play at their own home, but I think Everton are going to take a result here. Newcastle and Manchester United is another tough one to pick. I think United's league form has been very good. I think it's the best in the league at the moment for the last 5, 6 games at least, as long as you're considering that in isolation. And Newcastle at home, though, are just something else. And like we said earlier, they will have the bit between their teeth going for this game. And I'm going to say it'll be a closer game than last season's encounter between them, but Newcastle will come up on top 2-1. Bournemouth and Villa are two teams that both won last weekend, but I think it's it's fairly clear to regular viewers that Villa do have the stronger team cohesion, the stronger players, and I'm going to say that they are going to come out on top 3-1 in this game. Chelsea and Brighton is tough. It could honestly be a landslide either way if one team doesn't quite show up to the party ready to play. And I think both of them are going to show up enough that Chelsea is going to get a draw again against a good side at home. They're not quite doing enough to win these games, but they are getting somewhat results at home. And I expect that they'll get another draw. Liverpool and Fulham is a different matter altogether. Although Fulham did beat Wolves, it was quite fortuitous the way they managed to go about it. And Liverpool at home don't deal in luck, really. I think this is going to be a bloodbath, really, and I think Liverpool is going to win this 4-0. West Ham and Palace, a London derby, is always a little cagey, but West Ham are definitely the team in the better form right now. They simply are playing better. They're finding ways to get results, and I think they've just got a little more confidence about them. So I'm going to say a reasonably comfortable 3-1 win for West Ham. And Man City and Spurs, I think if Tottenham had their entire team available and their first choice players to be able to play them, they might be able to give this a little more of a contest and a little more of a match because Man City don't quite look um, as flawless as they have in previous seasons. But because Spurs have quite a few players unavailable and they've had to create makeshift defenses and such, I'm going to say this will be a routine City win. Not necessarily a demolition, but I think 3-1. That is where we're going to leave you for today. The matches are taking place only on Saturday and Sunday this weekend, so hopefully you're able to tune into some of our featured ones or other ones as well if you find those to your liking. We will be back very quickly after Matchday 14 is done, because we will also be previewing Matchday 15, which actually takes place in the middle of next week rather than waiting another whole week. So we'll be talking to you really soon. We'll have lots of videos coming out over the next few weeks to try and deal with the congested fixture list and keep you up to date. But in the meantime, take care, stay safe. Please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. And remember, it's called football.